Good morning. I am Steve Weber, and I am the host of the American Gumption Morning Show. So the American Gumption Show, it showcases ordinary individuals living extraordinary lives. And the reason why we focus on the ordinary, extraordinary here is because our world needs more positivity and encouragement. And we believe every single person is both ordinary and extraordinary. So my commitment to you in this show is to help you live an extraordinary life filled with gumption. All righty. So welcome to today's show. Today is show number 197, and Bart Smyth is going to be joining us in just in about 10, 15 minutes from now. So he is a modern day shaman. And so we'll just leave it at that. He's an expat living in Sweden, and we're going to hear Bart's extraordinary story coming up in just a few minutes. All righty. So now I do have a monologue prepared, and I'm going to talk about root causes. And this is borrowed from something. It's just a minor point that Bart's going to talk about, but I dug into that a little bit, so that's what I'm going to share with you. All right. Now, before I get into that, let me tell you that tomorrow, Serenity Sam comes back to the show. She's been a guest here several times. We haven't seen her in a couple of months, but Serenity Sam will join us, and she's going to talk about, she's been painting. She has picked up the brush and the oil paints and started painting. And it's really quite incredible what she's accomplished in the last few months. She has an artist mindset. She's been a musician, but she's going to go ahead and tell us how that painting has helped her, her overall art mindset and creativity. So that'll be tomorrow's show. All righty. Wednesday, Peter Panagori is going to join us. And Peter died on a mountain back in around 1981 or so, I believe, maybe 1980. And so anyway, he was ice climbing up in British Columbia, and he had a little bit of a problem, but he came back, and he wrote a book about it. It was a secret for many, many years, didn't tell anybody. So Peter's going to share his extraordinary story tomorrow. And then on Friday, Kimberly Palm joins us, and Thursday I tentatively have an idea, but can't announce that yet. So got a busy full week here. Oh yeah, today's actually the holiday, July 5th, but that's okay. We're broadcasting here. So hey, that's what we're doing. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and jump into our monologue. And again, it's called Root Causes. And I had to do a little bit of research to get this out. Now I'm sure you all, if I say the root cause, I mean, it's pretty obvious what, most people have a basic understanding of what a root cause would be. A root, if you take a tree or any kind of a plant and you chop it off at the roots, that's the end of that. So a root cause, when we think about problem solving or problems, is like, what is like that fundamental foundational issue? And so it's more of the, it's not the symptom. It's actually, the symptom is like kind of what shows up. We're talking about here the root cause. So some of the synonyms for it would be source, causation, the chief reason, driving force. And also the word catalyst came up. Now, that's kind of interesting because catalyst is what causes something to happen. So you could have a root cause that's inert. It's just sitting there, and then there could be a catalyst that kind of causes it. So then it initiates it to begin. And so I don't know. We'll ask Bart about that. Maybe he can have an idea on that, whether catalyst is really the right, one of those right words for a root cause, but it would be the explanation of why something happens and the reason that it happens. And I came up with the phrase, the heart of the matter. The root cause is the heart of the matter. So now in doing some research, I mean, man, there are sciences upon sciences that we never even knew of. So here's one, root cause analysis, RCA. Now, RCA is really, root cause analysis is really more on the scientific end of things, as opposed to what I think Bart and I are going to talk about, in healing modalities. But in the business world, RCA is actually a science, and it's often used to, it's a proactive management to identify the root cause of a problem. It's the factor that was the main cause of the problem. So it's the same kind of idea that I talked about, in terms of healing ourselves, but this is applied more to a business world, and it's used a lot in technology, in troubleshooting scientific type of problems, and in the building collapse in Florida. What's the root cause of what caused all that? So it says here it's customary to refer to the root cause in singular form, but one of several factors may in fact constitute the root cause or causes. So it could be there could be a couple of factors that are making it up, but typically we think of the root cause as like kind of one specific thing, and it's the factor that's considered the root cause of the problem if you remove it. So if you have this root cause thing, if you remove that problem, then the problem goes away and doesn't reoccur. And now there's something else that's called a causal factor, and a causal factor is one of the effects and is one that affects an event's outcome. So causal factors are part of the problem, and you can take the causal factor out of the way, but if you don't get the root cause problem, the problem still could come back again. So, there's knowing the difference between what are these root causes and what are these like secondary or what they're calling a causal factor. That's an important part of it. So in my own life and in my own transformation and in my own healing or my own awakening, I've identified 4 areas that I kind of focus on and separate: the physical, the body; the mental, the mind; the emotional, your feelings; and the spiritual. What is your connection to source energy, to God, whatever term you choose to use. So physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I've learned and discovered that once you find once you identify a problem, and let's say once you identify the root problem, the root cause, then it's like shining the light on it. We know that phrase, we shine light on it. And a root cause cannot exist in the darkness. And so these root causes are essentially unknown things. And so once we shine that light on it, we can see it. And before we shine that light on it, these are blind spots. And I spoke about that in my monologue last week, the blind spots, some of those monster stories that I had for 40 years that I was living my life with, that, once I uncovered the source of the original story, then it was like unknown. And the thing about that, once a problem is known, it kind of just disappears. Maybe not instantly, but pretty much instantly, because once it's known, you can't go back to not knowing it. So it's like one of those like aha moments where you go, oh my gosh, there it is. And then, you can't not know once you know. So that's in my own transformation and healing and awakening. It's very important to get to these root causes. And this is kind of, this is an important piece of what the work that Bart does. So he's going to tell us all about that. So here's the last thing I'll say is that change can be instantaneous, and that's what we call transformation. So once this knowing occurs, once we understand what that root cause is, boom, it's like, hey, there it is. Now it's no longer a secret. So there it is. That's kind of short and sweet this morning. That's my thinking about these root cause issues. I think that it's fun to, it's fun to think about these things, or it's fun to discover them. And they're always like an aha moment. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. So anyway, that's it. So I'm excited to bring Bart on. I see that he's in the green room, ready to go. I think I'll bring him on a few minutes early if he's ready back there. And oops, so he just disappeared. So I'm not going to bring him on quite yet. So anyway, that's that whole thing about the root causes. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and read Bart's bio and intro while he gets himself ready to go. So here he is. He's showing back up again. So who is? Let's see if we can bring him up. Bart, are you ready to go? Can we bring you on board here? A few minutes early.
Yep.
There he is. Hello, Bart Smyth. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
You're welcome.
I borrowed my monologue from your, the idea of the work that you're doing, which I'm going to let you explain in just a minute. But I really just wanted to talk about the idea of the root cause, because that's the work that you're doing and getting that. Now, the how do you get there? That's the secret formula that I'm sure you're going to share with us. So anyway, welcome. Now I have 2 rules here, Bart. Are you ready for the rules?
I hope so. I've had problems.
Oh, you have a problem with, we're going to get along good, because I don't like rules either. Hey, so the first rule is that I get to read, since it's my show, I get to read an intro and introduce who you are to people. And then I have a song that's called the First Time Guest theme song. And so I get to play the song and welcome you to it. And since you are an expat, you'll probably recognize, or at least you'll recognize the style of song. So does that sound fair?
Yeah, go for it.
All righty. So who is Bart Smyth? Bart is a master practitioner of various Eastern and indigenous philosophies, as well as the popular Yuen Method. Is that correct? Yuen?
There's 2 pronunciations. My last name's Smyth.
Smyth?
It's Irish, yeah. But it's the Yuen, Dr. Cam Yuen.
Yuen. Okay. Brad Smyth. Thank you I apologize for that. I made an assumption. And wait a minute. Here, let me.
It's okay.
There it is, Brad Smyth, and I've got your modern day shaman. There's your contact information scrolling along the bottom, Brad Smyth. And it is not spelled Smith, but I'm sure that I'm not the first person who's called you Smith.
They're usually trying to put an E on it because it's Smyth, and my first name is Bart, so it's Bart Smyth. Yeah, so no problem.
All right, thank you, Bart.
It's every which way, but it's fine. Yeah.
All righty, Bart Smyth. Yes, yeah. Thank you. So Bart was responsible for bringing Dr. Yuen's entire body of work to Europe, where he's trained over 400 therapists. He's a grandmaster of Tai Chi, Qigong, and holds certificates in Thai and Hansa Shih Tzu, massage, and neuromuscular sports therapy. That's a bit of a mouthful. I probably mispronounced one or two of those words, but I'm not going to worry about it. You can correct it as we get into it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So a serious car accident in which Bart suffered major injuries shifted his life back in 1987. You were probably just minding your own business, and then suddenly life got turned upside down. He went from owning a successful architectural design contracting company in San Francisco to working internationally as a transformational teacher and healer. He's trained with shamans and learned the Central and North American traditions. He studied in Peru and met Don Benjamin of the Shipibo tribe. And after a decade of work, Bart was initiated as a medicine man in 1998. So this is kind of fun. Bart Smyth, medicine man. I like that. Over the last 20 plus years, Bart trained therapists on 4 continents while assisting more than 40,000 clients. You've been a busy dude here the last couple of decades. He integrates a holistic approach, tapping into dimensions of life experiences from past and present that are lodged in one's being. And we've talked about that on the show multiple times, how the body holds energy and has blockages. So I'm thinking that's what you're going to get into with us. His gift is listening and simplicity, and he now lives in rural Sweden with his family. So Bart Smyth, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. We are honored to have you here, and I'm going to play that song. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before, Bart?
No, no, but I was in the orchestra when I was a kid, so I think it's been since then that I heard that.
You haven't heard over in Sweden, they don't play John Philip Sousa like they do in the US.
No, they don't. But they have a lot of music here. It's fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, good. Well, hey, welcome, Bart, to the show. We just met recently, and I've learned of what you're doing, and I was not familiar with the Yuen Method at all, but I've done a little bit of research on it, and so I think it's great. So thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
So you call yourself the modern day shaman, and the very first question I'm going to ask is, why has Western medicine, I'm going to say use the word perverted the idea that ancient wisdom and shamanism is somehow like, kind of a kooky thing or a weird thing, when in fact, a couple of centuries of information is out there for us to use, and yet we kind of got away from it. And what's your thinking on that? Because it's obviously the world's shifting. People are waking up to the fact that Western medicine isn't the answer.
Well, actually, if you look at it, it's always been curiosity, I think, that led people towards a point of view where they were isolating systems in the body and focusing on different systems at one time. So then, like nowadays, you have doctors that are not like the general practitioners when we were kids, but even back before Greek times. So anyway, I just think it evolved, and as the healthcare industry became more organized, there was political and monetary components that were brought into it. But I think everybody who's into healthcare, including myself, do it either out of need personally or for loved ones, or just plain curiosity. And I think that's how it evolved, and then again, money factor.
Yeah. They decided that, doctors, MDs, pharmaceuticals, good, everything else, kind of pushed to the side. So, but I think that's changing.
Yeah. And I like to take the middle of the road kind of point of view. I never throw the Western medical out, and I don't go off the deep end with the alternative either. Although people say I'm off the deep end, I look at everything with total possibility. But as I tell people, when I'm in the hospital getting sewn up, I'm glad that those doctors are so clever. And I've been told many times. So
when you back in '87, you had some kind of a car accident. I'm sure that Western medicine put you back together again.
No, actually, I'll just run through this real quickly. They were critical for my initial pain relief. My first accident was actually in '85. And I went through a process of trying to take care of myself with martial arts. I'm a martial artist. And by the time, after a couple of weeks after the accident, I had to go to the hospital. And I'll zoom through this. They just gave me electrical therapies and medications. And I'd never taken pills before, an aspirin here or there. But anyway, they put me on a three pill combination that I stopped after 6 months. I saw what it I read what it was doing to my liver. My dear friend of mine gave me information. But by that time, my life had changed because of the medication, my point of view. So I put myself in a drug rehab to figure out what was wrong, because I was depressed and not the same person. I wasn't addicted, but my life had changed. So anyway, speed forward to '87. And a little later in San Francisco, another one. I had the fortune to have a policeman on the corner of 4th and Folsom in San Francisco. I was a contractor there, and a guy ran a red light. There was 4 cars in a row, so one-way street. And my truck, I took off like that, and I saw this guy steaming through, and I tried to get past him, but he hit my rear axle. Policeman was there, and everybody said it's $1 million accident, but the first time I went with the Western Medical, and they tried to get a lawsuit and all that. to re-educate me. And I just saw that my focus, I gave all my power over to them. I didn't think about healing myself. As soon as I got off the pills, I hired a guy that was a martial artist that worked for a friend of mine as a bodyguard. And he lived with me, and I worked my way back that way. And this time I told the insurance companies, I'll be healed in a year and a half, and give me my paycheck for my company. And I choose all my therapies. And I went to Feldenkrais, Chinese medicine, switched to Tai Chi, vegetarian lifestyle therapy. Yeah. So that's how I got involved with alternative healing, because the other didn't work. And it left me with a lot of situations that I didn't know how to navigate. So, but it was good. It led me where I had to learn how to navigate in a new way, a new perspective. And everything that worked for me, I now bring to the world as best I can. Yeah.
One more question about that, early part of your life. Did you have any inkling of that, prior to it, or did it all kind of come on as a result of these accidents? If you look back into your childhood and your parent factor influences, was there anything there that, was sort of like a foundation? Or?
Well, yeah, everything's a foundation. Two things: being a martial artist helped a lot with my work, and my father was one of George Patton's forward observers during World War II. So he was like special forces and very strung very tight after the war. So I had a very alert disposition.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing was my mother was a physical therapist that actually worked at the one in the Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
So she would massage all three of us children and groom us and teach us how to take care of our ears and everything like that with hydrogen peroxide when we were kids and stuff. So fast forward, my carpenters would come in with a headache, and I just knew, that I didn't ever train reflexology, but they'd come in with whatever, hangover or flu or whatever. And they go, "Hey Bart, can you do that thing for me?" And I'd hold their hand and I'd hit points, and then in a couple of minutes they go, "Okay, thanks." Go to work. And so I don't know, it just kind of evolved. I had this sixth sense of things.
Yeah.
And I think because of, being hyper alert to my father, who could, if we were in a restaurant, somebody broke a plate, he'd, after the war, they didn't have therapy after World War II. So. Right.
So you call yourself the modern day shaman. I think a lot of people, maybe don't have a good understanding of what a shaman was or is. Just give us kind of a basic of, why you use that term and what it means to you today.
Well, because I combine all modern Western sciences, pathologies. I trained in Ayurvedic, homeopathy, Chinese medicine, herb. I bring all those components that I train, some in depth, some surface level, to get a good understanding so I could work with my clients and send them to the right people and things like that. But all the quantum, plus I have an approach that was my investigation in my own life led me to a Jungian Gestalt and what's called Hakomi body-centered psychotherapy, combined with the teacher plants and all that. And we had North American teachers. Then we went to one of our doctors trained with Maria Sabina, the mushroom woman of Oaxaca, and then Don Benjamin. I evolved into the ayahuasca with one of my teachers who led me to Peru. So I have that information in me. So when I'm working with people, the information can be extremely exact and it can be very wide. So
when as you started really digging into this to heal yourself, it seemed like you learned a whole, I'm going to call it a whole string of different modalities, but then you ultimately settled on the Yuen Method as kind of your primary means, and these other ones still are part of it in your foundational, work and your tools in your toolbox of how you help people. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that everything has its right time and place. I actually evolved my work to a place. My point of view is to, I don't like to make a career out of any client. So my goal is to bring as much as safely and as quickly and safely as possible for them to have their own awareness and abilities to take care of themselves. So I would say yes, as far as quantum healing, the Yuen Method, I refer to it as biocomputer technology. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's something that when I got a hold of it, I just said, like, wow. I just come back from China with training with Qigong. It's Qigong masters over there. And I met Dr. Yuen in Las Vegas, and I saw what he could do, and I asked to become his student in '94, and it was like, yes, that's the main thing. Yet everything combines with that, so there's nothing left out. Anything that functions. So I trained in Reiki. I'm a Reiki master too. Trained in Taoist Qi healing, many different modalities, and that all amalgamates into what happens. But yeah.
Dr. Yuen, and he has a website that he goes through and explains, the entire methodology, but it's really a combination of a whole bunch of different, the Yuen Method combines a lot of modalities all in one. And probably you had already studied those when from your going to Peru and from other areas that you studied in. Tell us about the Yuen Method.
Well, the Yuen Method is, we work with the principles of that our system has mainframe components such as your main energy channels and your cranial brain and spinal brain, sacral brain. And this central line is that central computer. And we can access anywhere in the body. Some people can use something similar to kinesiological testing if you want, a muscle test, to find out the weakness and then correct it on the midline and find out exactly what components of that are. I like to be clear that it's not kinesiology. I trained in kinesiology too, and I can relate to kinesiology, but everything has its own point of view. But I'm just using that as that's a tool to investigate with. And then, so we can go to the mainframe computer and ask what's going on, and your system knows everything. So past, present, and future, all dimensions, all timelines, and all that. And it's a matter of being, like in my dialogue or my intro, it says, one of my gifts is listening. And I think that's one of the gifts I came with, because I didn't have massive indoctrination in any method. Just like my martial arts, I've trained in many martial arts. I wound up with Tai Chi out of necessity, and my girlfriend was taking it, and I couldn't do anything else. And I hated it when I got there, but after 6 months, it was like, wow. And it just took me by storm. Every moment became that for me. So, but I still train in Kung Fu and Karate and other martial arts to bring the body-mind awareness to me. But so.
When you talked about the martial arts, there's a foundation of like a lot of mind, and I think maybe professional athletes and people who take it serious in the West, in the U.S., they understand the mental component of it, but a lot of exercises that that I was taught as a kid were more like a physical thing, not too much of a mental thing, and so that mental training along with physical is probably a pretty important piece of the work you're doing now.
Well, and I was describing that one thing. What I wanted to say is that everything comes together and lends itself to what is accessible through the Yuen Method. And if I'm not stuck in one train of thought, like I'm not bought on one martial art, I'm not bought on one modality of healing, then I'm open to hear what my client needs. And so I wanted to be clear on that. And the mind, body, and energy connection came to me in Aikido first. And I was one of these guys that I was very strong. I raced, skiing, I did boxing and other things, and football. So I was very fast and very coordinated. But when I came to Aikido, it was like to relax and allow the energy to flow. I was like the worst student there was, it was like I was too in my mind. So it's really about being out of your mind and being able to listen and sense. And so we use in Qigong, we use a basic principle, which I like to give to people, which we have a point that's called the Dantian just underneath the navel. And you just focus there in the beginning of Tai Chi and Aikido. So these points of focus, when we're really still and silent in those points, then we're aware of our environment too. So inner and outer. Okay.
My own bias as a child and young adult, and even into my and really only in the last 10, 15 years did I kind of awaken to the importance of the mind body connection. But I didn't buy into like what like the whole different Eastern methodologies. I guess I was told and made to believe that was kind of hocus pocus and magic stuff. And yet, as I've done my own awakening with it, I can understand, and I seem like I'm getting more and more tuned in energetically. And it's not like I've had like radical, like, oh my gosh, kind of things, but it's just been a steady drip, 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 where that vibration meter, sensitivity meter in terms of understanding energy just keeps going up and up and up. What do you find like with your students? Are people, how are they changing over, the last 25, 30 years that you've been doing this work? Are people tuning into it better now, or has it always kind of been there?
Yeah, it's massive. When I started this, I was in Dr. Yuen's second round, but we actually developed all the courses with the generation that I came in on. In fact, I had to create all my own charts. He didn't have charts in the beginning, but a few things. But anyway, so it's been massive. Nowadays it's kind of like everybody is using the word energy, right? So that wasn't around that much back then, and it's not looked upon as voodoo or anything like that.
Right.
I would say, here in Europe, it's like when I first got to Sweden, even the Reiki practitioners thought I worked for the devil, right? Because I would do things too fast, right? It was too quick, too fast. I'm not putting down Reiki. It's just they were not aware of it. So I was like the first kid on the block here with a lot of these things through Germany and Sweden. And now it's like everywhere. Everybody's got a modality. So it's wonderful. People are, children are talking about it. And that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to take this to the schools, get kids indoctrinated. All my children could do this by the time they're 10.
Yeah. Talk about the last question on this idea of people waking up. Like, so, we're more of the boomer generation, or at least I am. And, the younger people, are they more open to this, or like, are the boomers waking up to it? How does it, fit into that? Is it kind of just equal across the board? What would be your sense of that?
People are into what works, right? People want results. And so like I work in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and it's fun to be there because, especially like in Saudi Arabia, I started going there a couple of years ago because the people that were there were very keen and attuned. They have a very natural connection to the earth and the energies in these Arab countries. They're not that far removed as we are from nature. They are now because of cars and all that. But it's like when I first started working in Dubai about 6 years ago, it was the locals weren't really coming. Now I have many local clients. They're all strata of society, and I even hear that Sheikh Mohammed has all his staff go to take Reiki classes and other classes, and meditation classes and yoga classes. So the leader of the UAE is totally in on supporting this mind, body, and energy thing. So I think it's sweeping the world. It's just, or swept the world.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, so how did you? So you met Dr. Yuen back in 94, and you were part of his maybe not his first class, but his second group of people that went through, and it sounds like, and I'm only learning this now, that you ended up helping develop the curriculum. He had the foundation of it, but
many students did, and his first cousin Eddie and I are close. Eddie Leong, he's a master of this, and he helped. Everybody's brought, of course, with the guidance of Dr. Yuen would be the final word on what
sure,
because he was putting the protocols together. But yeah, many of us, it's what works, and that the universe keeps revealing, because we're a growing universe within, and we're expanding within and without.
So you're living back still in the States at this time when you're doing this training. Did they say, hey, Bart, we need you to go to Europe and start training people? And how'd that work? And how did you end up over in Sweden?
Everything I've done, it's funny because you were the Gump thing. Yeah, I tell everybody, I feel like Forrest Gump. My first life was somewhat on the dark side. There was a lot of challenges growing up in LA. But I met a lot of top people in LA and powerful people on both sides of the fence. And then I met Dr. Yuen and these other great masters, just bump into them, and all of a sudden they offer me to be their student or whatever. I was teaching quantum physics at a center in Austin, Texas. I'd been requested, and this woman had a cold, and I just said, I could probably help you with that. She looked at me, and she's German, very strict, proper German woman. So she always told the story. She was very, here's another American, but I got rid of her cold in like 30 seconds. And afterwards, she had the teacher contact me to get permission to talk to me. That's how proper she was with me. She didn't come to me. And she invited me. I went to Southern Germany, and all of a sudden they wanted to learn what I did, and Dr. Yuen started supporting me, feeding me information to become a teacher there. And in Las Vegas, it was before he had teacher programs, and he just he trusted me.
So then you went to Germany, and then did you come back to the States, or did you end up just sort of staying there and going from place to place to place?
No, well, I had Tai Chi schools in Las Vegas, and therapy business and coaching business. And I had met my wife, Petra, who was Swedish. She was with the Lipizzaner Stallions. She was the star of the show there, and got kicked she got in between two stallions, and got kicked in the head and the chest. And she came to me to get herself put back together, and then train Tai Chi. So I met her. So I had a connection in Sweden and Germany. So I was flying to Germany often. She was on the road a lot before we got married, but my focus came over there. And then when we got married, we wanted to have our children in Sweden so we could have double passports. So all my children were born here. And I used the Yuen Method in Chinese medicine to birth all our children in the bathtub. So that worked. And so that's how it's gone. I've gone throughout all of Scandinavia a couple times, all of Germany, Spain, Italy. I go where people ask me to go. Yeah.
What happened?
It's all been word of mouth.
What happened last year when, or before we get to last year? So for the last, let's say, 15, 20 years, you've been based out of Sweden and then constantly like going here and there for like a week or two at a time. Is that how it's worked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously last year, I'm assuming your travel got, shut down like everybody else's.
Yeah. And actually that was really good for me because, real quick, 12 years ago, why I do this work is I had a lot of injuries in sports and things, and car accidents. So anyway, I was paralyzed to my knees, and I didn't know it, in a car accident in 2003. And I took a jump skiing here after we moved here, and miscalculated, and I went a little too high and came down on ice and blew my knee out. Then subsequently I slipped and hit my head really bad. So I stayed here and I rebuilt my knee sitting in an office for 4 years. It took me that long to heal my brain and my knee on my own to where I could launch into traveling. But once I launched traveling again, so, finances, children, houses, cars, and all that other stuff to pay for here in Sweden, it's one of the most expensive countries to live in. It's like San Francisco almost. And so anyway, I got launched into going all the time. Once COVID hit, I realized that it took me about 6 to 8 months for me to like land in my body. And so I was actually thankful for COVID, and I do all my work online over the internet like you are doing now. So it's been really good for me. So.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that works.
How's your Swedish?
Jag kan prata svenska. Varje dag.
So you learned you're fluent at this,
No, I can sit in a conversation and get about 70% of it, and okay. I can handle all the normal stuff.
Okay, very good. Good. And I'm assuming the kids are bilingual.
Kids are bilingual. They like English better. They all want to go back to the States. They lived in the States. My son didn't. I got a 12-year-old boy, but in 3 years we're going to move back to the States. So. Okay,
very good, very good. Well, it's a great story. Obviously, you compared it to Gump. You just were at the right place at the right time, and even when there were things that were setbacks or adversity or disaster, it kind of turned out good, didn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, Forrest Gump just kept saying yes. And that's one of my best teachers told me, Henry, he goes, Bart, your job is to say yes to life. And I said, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, good. So what is, you said you're going to be back in the States in a couple of years. What's in the short term? What are you doing? And, will you resume a schedule like, a travel schedule like you had pre-COVID, or will you, attempt to try to do things a little differently the next couple of years? What's your plans?
Yeah, I'm done with the travel thing. I'll probably hop in around Europe and stuff, and maybe a couple times to Dubai, but Dubai is a 6-hour flight. I don't want to travel that much anymore, and I can do everything I do online. I'm actually, as we met in this course, it was very ironic because my business partner in the States got me involved in the podcast situation. I thought it was a completely different deal, but then after I met Jay and talked to him, I'm looking to do this and bring my network of people that I admire and think have great value. I have wonderful, wonderful people in many different areas of life. I've got great children, teachers for children, and many things, relationships, all that kind of thing. So I want to support the whole system that I've worked with and bring that to the world, just like you're doing, and run my business. So, yeah. It's growing. I'll see how it goes. Right.
Good. Well, good luck. We're grateful that you came on today and shared this. I didn't know anything about the Yuen Method, so I'm glad to know about it. I'm totally into the energy work. I have the website Quantum Gumption that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with, but I knew I love quantum enough that I thought, oh, this is important. I thought it was kind of going to be that spiritual or that energy thing. I don't consider myself a teacher. I'm just a curious student through this whole thing.
Yeah, that's how it is. That's the best. If you're curious, and it's like I was talking with Dr. Yuen one day, and I said, the least I know, the better. He goes, yeah, I'm at the point where I don't want to know anything. I go, I know, I don't want to know anything either. I don't want to know anything about my clients. They'll want to tell me, but it reveals, and I don't have a preconceived notion. So. Congratulations.
It's funny. I had the luxury of sitting on a park bench pretending to be a character for 15 years. And I was always amazed at how people would just open up and they felt very safe and comfortable with me and the character. but it always amazed me how people would just open up and like tell you whatever was, front and center. And I'm assuming that's what you do too, is you don't have a park bench that you sit on, but you're sitting on a park bench listening to people and helping them.
Yeah. Yeah. And growing up, I always I was rather philosophical and thought out about the world. And I had a lot of friends that came to me with situations. And
what did you your construction crew, this is a long time ago, when they showed up with a hangover, what was it you would do to help them get through the day?
Well, at any point could be different, but you have main points on the hand that I've learned since your adrenals and your intestines and pericardium, things like this. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Just speed back. What happened for me when I first got introduced to energy work was a dear friend of mine had multiple sclerosis, and I drove her to Battle Creek, Michigan. I was building condos up in Holland, Michigan, and I drove her to Battle Creek to meet her acupuncturist. And I'd always wanted to do Aikido, and he had all these books on Aikido. I said, so what are these? Where'd you get all these? He goes, well, I'm a teacher. So I started training with him. That's when I started getting into the energy concept. She knew kinesiology, and I had this intuition with my fingers. So I would go home and I would just do my own shiatsu energy point therapy on Linda. And my hands would go to the right place. And all of a sudden she'd go, oh, thank you. And I go, wow.
Wow.
Right. So it was just by pure desire and curiosity. And I kept tracing and finding, the road open to carrot.
So now that you're doing this work over the internet, how does it work? Because you can't grab their hand. How do you help them find relief?
Well, I can, with a thought. One thing that's happened for me through all my head traumas, I've had 9 traumatic brain injuries that I've basically fixed with this new stem cell technology that I got. And my work. But I'm very sensitive. So like when somebody contacts me with something, I don't take phone call diagnosis anymore, because people will call and the work will take place while they're talking to me, and then they don't have a session with me. So, by the time we're done dialoguing, the work's done. So, but I can feel right. It might sound weird, but I can feel anything that's happening in the center of your brain. I can feel where there's blocks, your body, your spine, or I get thoughts and pictures, and so right. I do that with you right here, and with that, then I can find out where like you were talking about, root cause. Where's the root cause? Could it be this life, a past life? Could it be fears, phobias, things like this? And I wasn't into the past life thing, but if it shows up, I work with it. Yeah. I mean, when I first started, I had no clue. I was about as spiritual. I mean, I was the opposite side of the communication. If somebody came and told me what somebody told me I went to a palm reader, and he goes, "So you're going to be a spiritual healer this lifetime?" I looked at him, I said, "What a crock." Yeah. And then another one at the same fair said I was going to do that too. And I go, that was in San Francisco. I went home. I go, these guys are crazy. But yeah, so I never thought I'd be doing this. I consider myself a mechanic and a technician, and you heal yourself. And that's the beauty. I don't have any responsibility, and you don't have to be sensitive like me. I just became that way after many years. And there's people who come onto this conversation that are probably more sensitive than I am now. Just at the beginning, there's all levels, but I was pretty thick. Yeah.
So if a person goes to a moderndayshaman.net, which is your website listed right below, a moderndayshaman.net, they can contact you. Just give a little, give a minute or two and just tell how you help people if they want to reach out to you.
Well, in many different ways. Anything physical. I can give examples of things. If you go to my website, there's many examples. I'll just say that. Go to my website, you can see them. There's one in there that at the back with the eyeball. She's my closest friend and my first Tai Chi student. And she just got her lens put in there. She was losing her eye. USC said there was no way to save the eye, and we did that over the phone. So it was very technical, and she showed me how to do that. I learned more about the anatomy of the eye than I've seen in books. So it was very interesting. I like to work with people, clarify the misperceptions and conceptions, both energetically, but mainly I've developed a way of working with groups and people individually that they'll see for themselves the choices they made, and that they always made the right choice. Even if the results might have created a trauma at the time, it was the right choice. And I had a lot of those type of choices that made traumas for myself, but I did survive, and I had to find my way back home to where I was before those choices had to be made. And so I like to work with people that way. It's simple, but it's conscious, and it's energetic. We can work on both ways. So I work with obesity, addictions, a lot of traumatic brain injuries. I like to do that because I'm good at it. I'm effective. I can really help people I've worked with vets. I've worked with people falling out of the car when they're children and can't function very well, things like that. Nutrition, and finding. Then the other thing is, like I also did a 4-year university in what was called the Sage Learning Method, and that is basically the same principle of feedback. You're never guiding or directing anybody, but through feedback and digital photography, people can see when both hemispheres are aligned on what truly lights them up. And then when that happens, then that eliminates a lot of distraction in one's life, and the universe can deliver that quicker. So it's a wonderful journey. And I created a course called Purpose to Prosperity to support that work. And when we've got a sense of purpose in our life, healing happens. And that's the other blessing I had through all my injuries. I had children. So, if I didn't have children, I really think I could have succumbed to some of my injuries because they were that bad. But I always thought, no, I want to watch my children grow, and I'm here, and we're here to stay. So.
Wow. Well, this is it's really a good story, and you are ordinary, and yet the extraordinary that we open the show with, the idea that we all have that inner gift, and we just have to come to it. Yeah. Looks like the sun is.
We've had some thunderstorms. That's the main thing is we all. I was listening to this podcast that Jay was on with Jocko, and he was quoting Jesus or John, who said, what I do, you'll do and more, right? Mm-hmm. We all have the same equipment, and that's why I love energy and the work, because you can't make a mistake, and everybody has the ability with a simple awareness to do it, and everybody can bring their gift of knowing. And
one of Dr. Yuen's website, he gives the example of goosebumps as a way of kind of a way that knows that something energetically is moving and happening. We've all had that experience. And on a personal level, I've just recently, like in the last few months, songs that I'd listened to, like classic rock type music, right? So stuff that I listened to as a kid and as a teenager, and listening to certain songs. And there'll be certain singers or certain notes that literally kind of are lighting up my body. Like I'm feeling like a vibration inside of it. I never felt that before. So I'm kind of excited by it, because it tells me that this energy sensitivity that I'm trying to tune into is working. It's like it's getting ramped up. So
and that's your intention, and that's one of the martial arts I do. It's a qigong, but it's each one. It's intention training, and there's so much going on the planet now, and the energies and vibration of the collective is noticeable and tangible. So we're all in this together. It's great.
Yeah. I think the last thing I'd like to ask you about is the idea that instantaneous healing can occur. And that is really what you're doing and helping people. What are your, I kind of shared in my monologue a little bit about the idea that how I thought it worked, but I'd love to hear, what your perspective of instantaneous energy healing and how that works. Because people think of they got to go through therapies and, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be that way.
Well, first I'd have to say that I don't know completely.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but also I could say I do know that you can have I had a woman contact me the other day, and she was getting a migraine and a stomach ache. And the first word that popped in was distrust, or the words was distrust in her relationships, negative relationship. And I said, well, this is a relationship issue. And she goes, she just broke up with her girlfriend a week before, and she has to move out of the house. And she goes, it's better. It went from a 10 to a 3 that fast. So I worked with all the components of the system that held that stress and tension from that thought, let's say that. So everything has its own information, its own support system and communication with itself and the rest and the whole. So once we hit the right button, then instantly things can change.
Yeah, the body, so there's this event happens, whether it's a relationship or whether it's some kind of a physical injury, and then all of a sudden the body will store energy in one particular spot, and then it creates and manifests into, like a headache in the short term, but, cancer in the long run. And so somehow once we can kind of shine like a flashlight onto that spot, that energy can somehow be released from the body, and healing can occur.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that happened to me. I was hit by a drunk driver on my motorcycle in Santa Fe, and I went to the hospital, the emergency ward. I mean, I launched. I had a Honda 900, and the guy hit me full on, and I tried to get out of the way. I saw him coming. It was a red light, and I changed lanes, and he changed lanes. And I kicked the bike away, and I landed on my back and bounced to my feet. And so I didn't know what was going on at the time. I really wasn't that injured. It was freaked out. But the doctor said, look for, I was 26. He said, look for a heart attack when you're 45. So on my 45th birthday, I'd done all my martial arts training. Then I'd run my dog down the beach for an hour, and I started feeling like I was having a heart attack. It was on my birthday. And I go, holy shit. And they go, oh yeah. And then I went right back to that emergency hospital in Santa Fe, and I just deleted that. The pain left, and I kept running. True story. But my mind locked onto that, right?
Right.
And just another, I'd like to say something real quick, because one of the episode or examples I like to give in my course is a guy was terrified of dying in a refrigerator train car down in Switzerland. And he got locked into one. He wrote a letter to his wife saying goodbye, and he froze to death. He had all the symptoms, but the refrigerator wasn't on. But he created that with his mind. So like you're talking about subconscious, non-conscious, unconscious, superconscious, all these different levels and times and space. It sounds like a lot, and maybe it's a new perception for everybody, but just relax with it and just go, oh, well, I don't know, but if the results are there, and like that's what I was saying the other day, it's like, it's about results. I don't know coming in, but you create your own results. I'm just the guy who turns the key that you tell me to turn.
Well, Bart Smyth, thank you for joining us this morning. It's been great. It's actually afternoon for you. I think you're about 6 hours in advance. What do they call the time zone? Is it like Central Europe time zone? What do they call it? Where do you live?
Central European time. Yeah.
Central European time. All righty. So that's
Stockholm, Berlin, Stockholm. We're in the close to.
Yep. So I always have to, when I talk to people from around the country, I always have to find the city closest to them and use the time zone converter. So anyway, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time this afternoon for you. And
Thank you.
We'll
really being here.
good.
Thanks a lot.
And we'll see you. We hopefully we'll you and I will be in touch as we're both, educating ourselves and continuing to learn. We're both curious people, and we're learning how to reach more people in an effective way like this medium. So good luck with all of that, and thank you for sharing your story, Bart.
Thank you. It was great. Look forward to the future. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Bart Smyth, for joining us. What a interesting story. He is kind of a Forrest Gump character who just kept being in certain places, and any one of those incidences could have put him into a spiral that he went, oh, I can't go on, or it's like, why did this happen to me? But he always just learned from it, and just like Gump did, he learned from it, and you pick up the pieces and then you go along. It was also great that he shared, his early childhood where, he did have that, he did have his mother massaging and teaching and realizing that it's so important that we kind of take care of ourselves rather than, her just throwing them in and acting helpless and taking them to a doctor and saying, what's wrong with the kid? So anyway, that was fun. Good luck to you, Bart. All righty. Well, that's it. I am going to see you guys tomorrow. Serenity Sam is going to join us. She's going to come back to the show, and she's going to tell us how painting in the last, 5-6 months has really activated her artistic creativity in a new way. And then Peter Panagori on Wednesday, he is the author of Heaven is Beautiful, and it's his experience of dying on the side of a mountain and experiencing heaven, but God saying, or him telling God, my work's not done here. I have to go back. And God said, okay, see you later. We'll see you next time around. All righty. And then Kimberly Palm on Friday. All right. So we got a busy week. Have a great rest of your first full week of July. We'll see you tomorrow.